Welcome to GM Talks. Today we're gonna look at close position, like a foreign country for most players that's just starting out in chess. So today I'm gonna teach you a little bit about how to think in close positions. This is difficult stuff, but when you master it, it can be like you win without your opponent ever getting any kind of air, just like Boa Constrictor chess. So today we're gonna look at how to master close position, when to use prophylactic and when to shift gear and so on. We're gonna use a game from 1982 between Predrag Nikolic and Svetozar Gligoric. So and let's get into the game. White starts out with d4. It's a book move. This is that's also a book move apparently. Anyway, this is, well, how do I switch that crap off? Anyway, that's annoying with the book move. Okay, I gotta find out later. And this is the Nimo-Indian. Black goes out with the bishop, is ready to castle, and of course it pins the bishop here. E3 is known as the Rubinstein complex in the Nimo-Indian. Another important line is queen c2. You can also go f3, and at the moment a3 is a little bit popular. c5 is not what they play most of the time nowadays. And the reason is because they are afraid of knight e2. That's not what Nikolic played in 1982. They were not aware that these systems were maybe not that good for white. But this move is what people fear with black, and that's why the move order here after e3 is more normal to go castle. Or play b6, but castle is clearly the most played move and probably best. I'm not completely convinced that this is so fantastic for white, but it is at the moment black is avoiding this stuff, so maybe you should too. I don't know. Back then they were not afraid of that, so they play bishop d3, knight c6, knight f3, all mainline theory. If black goes d5, castle, and a3, we will have a complete normal mainline Nimo-Indian. But black plays bishop takes c3. This is known as the Hübner variation. I think most of you have probably heard about the famous game Spassky-Fischer, where Spassky won in 28 moves with black in this line. What's the point of taking here? Usually white plays a3 and you're giving up the bishops. The idea is simply to play Capablanca chess. You take this one, then you put your pawns on black and you will have a nice white squared bishop. So the idea of taking here, and of course white takes back, is to play d6, e5, and have only good pieces, make white's bishops sort of clumsy. If they can't do anything, then the bishop pair is not worth much. And also this knight here is a little bit misplaced, because in the Semis variation it goes here, so that white also can attack with the f pawn. And at the moment it's in the way. I think the position is interesting. It's double-edged. It's not an advantage for black, but it's not an advantage for white either, and that's why white tends to avoid this system these days. d6, and here white goes e4. I think it's of course it's one of the main lines, but I think it's a better line is not to play e4, maybe knight d2 and wait a little bit, try to keep some sort of dynamics in your pawn structure. In general, the bishop pair and this double pawn will become much weaker. I should use another color, orange here. These pawns will become much weaker if there's no attack. Then if there is an attack and white can sort of get the bishop to jump into life, then you can sacrifice a pawn or something like that, and it will not be a problem. But it's not that easy. E4, E5, that's definitely the book move, and D5. You don't have to play that, but it's also the book move. And knight E7, and the reason, sometimes you put it here, but it's easy to defend this. And there's another reason why knight A5 is not good when you have the pawn here. So here comes the really deep stuff. Are you ready to hear the really deep stuff? The real deep stuff is, if it goes here, white will go knight D2. I can show you. Knight D2, and next knight B3, and when, for instance, if you castle or something, you go knight B3, and when you take here, you can take back with the pawn on B3, and greatly improving white's position on the queen side, where the double pawns are not that weak anymore, and you have an A file which is much more interesting combined with this mass of pawns than the B file and the isolated A pawn. So that's the reason why in many systems where this little move, having gone one step forward, means a lot. Anyway, the knight is needed on the king side, because basically black can seal off the queen side with whatever he can play. You can actually, most of the time, it's possible if white goes, for instance, they go A4, you can go A5, and that's not going to happen much on the queen side anymore. Well, he will maybe try to bang down on the D file, B file, but it's possible to cover this one with a knight, and nothing will happen here at all. With you, if you have an idea, there's no bishops coming to attack anything. The rook can just stand there. You can put all the heavy pieces in the B file, but the knight on D7 will just cover the square, and nothing happens. So the main battle field is on the king side. That's why the knight is going to the king side. The famous game with Fischer and Spassky and Fischer went like this, and here Fischer played this move, which was more or less of a novelty, and it turned out, and Spassky he took, which was not the best, and took here, which was very bad, and this structure is a disaster for white, because black has a very useful extra D pawn here, and this pass pawn is not worth much, and the bishop, they're basically out of a job. It's like the new jobs report from the US. Not much happening there. Rook b1, you can play that. It's not really a fantastic move, and it's, well, rook to an open file. Nothing happens here. H6 is probably a good move. It's a natural move to avoid any kind of thing, and you're putting an idea. Often black would go for the f5 break in this position, especially if he had castle kingside. He would definitely try to go for the f5 break, but here he has not castle kingside yet, which mean that maybe the c5 move order is a little bit interesting in that respect. H4, interesting move. White is hoping to launch a pawn storm over here, blasting black away and getting the bishop to work at some point. Queen c7, and Nikolic is very, very calm in this in this part of the game. Queen c7, just covering this one, making ready for the king to maybe go that way. Knight h2. Okay, white is clearly dreaming of d4, and black decides, okay, well, I'm fighting for the white squares here, so I'll play h5. The computer from chess.com doesn't like it. I think it's a great move, and we'll see just how great it is soon. All the pieces are blocked here, and goes to attack on this one, and castle queenside. Now, let's talk a little bit about the pawn structure. Basically, white hopes to attack on the b file, or maybe with the a pawn coming as well. And he has another idea is to go here, annoy these bishops, attack this pawn, maybe play something with f4. What about black? Does he have anything? Well, in the long run, if white doesn't manage to get any kind of play, he'll have a huge advantage on the king side and be able to launch an attack. And this pawn will probably turn out to be misplaced in that scenario. And white will dream that his king was down here instead of on the king side. So it's an interesting position, bishop d5, and it looks like white is very active, and even more so after this move, which the chess.com does not like either. The thing is, when you have played h4, then f4 is not so strong, because this square will be lost forever. Notice black goes to cover this, so this pawn will not be lost. In general, when you have close position, the play is slower, and it's much more important to, one, find the right plan, and two, make sure your pieces get set up for whatever your opponent is planning to do. And that's probably wrong. White should not go that way. I think white think he has some sort of advantage on the king side. He does not have that. And here comes another great move, which the computer at chess.com does not like. Rook df8, covering this pawn, getting ready to maybe play g6 and move the knight. And rook e1 makes no sense. That's just I don't get it. The idea is something with this, but it's just a ridiculous move. But it's not so easy to find a plan for white. Still f4 was something you were hoping for, but in this situation, after something like knight d4, how are you gonna? You really want a knight in here? Not really, right? King b8, and the computer does not like that either. I think it's a wonderful move and a brilliant concept. Just getting away, rook e2, and it's coming here and black goes bishop g4, attacking this one, forcing f3, forcing a move forward. This was necessary, so there's no need to. And bishop c8, covering this one, just going back with all the pieces. Nothing to see here. Rook b2, eb2. Here comes another great move. Knight d7. Overprotecting this one, getting out of the way, and we see that this pawn is no longer hanging due to this pawn being on f3. White is not threatening anything at the moment. Okay, so what now? Queen b3. More pieces, like all these pieces pushing through this pawn. Are we afraid? No. f6, move, and here comes knight e7, knight into the game. The computer does not like this move. a4 does not like either. It doesn't know. To be honest, a computer does not understand this position, and I had to switch that crap off. I don't know how to do it. Okay. King ba8, and the computer does not like that either. And I think it's a wonderful concept. It just shows exactly how to play in this kind of position. Black has all the time in the world, because his structure is better, and there is an attack coming over here at some point with something. And it will take some time to prepare, but it's coming, and all you have to do is just prevent white from getting any play on the queen side. And how do you do that? Boop, here it comes, and the computer does not like it, and I think it's a nice move. And a5, and it doesn't like it, and knight a6, and voila! How are you ever going to get anything going on the queen side. It's not going to happen. And here we have, like white exhausted everything he got to get to this position, and he cannot do anything anymore. He's trying, of course, with the bishop, but that takes pieces away from the defense, and maybe he should start thinking about running with the king or something and get some pieces to the king side, because it's not going to be decided on the queen side. And rook d8, bishop a4, still hoping to do something with, I don't know, bishop b5, a6, and so on. At g5, and here comes the attack. Take and just go back. Still nothing to see here. If only we could land a knight here or something, but it's not possible. And well, push, attack, and push further. And of course we can see that it's a one-way traffic here. It's just coming, boom, boom, and everything is gonna be turned into a nightmare for this one. So Grigoric, of course, got very, very frustrated and played e5. It doesn't make any sense, but then g3 with tempo and just taking this bishop makes a lot of sense. It's not going to attack anything and winning a pawn, and hoping still to do something, and black's attack just marches on, and we see that it has now landed on the king, and well, doesn't matter. And here I think he overstepped the timeline, or he resigned. I don't know. He's definitely completely and utterly lost. Something like this is just dying. So what happened here? Black played knight g8, he played rook f8, he played bishop c8, he played king b8 to a8, he played knight d7 to b8 to a6 and back to b8, and then moved a rook and a knight, and he played d5 and suddenly had a totally winning attack. So what went wrong for white? Well, most of all, his game plan was simply wrong for the position. So he was sort of being punished for hoping that playing this kind of attack, that it would somehow succeed on the queen side. And when it didn't, of course the position is completely hopeless, and you just lose. So he had to sort of find a way to go back earlier, but it's not so easy to just admit that your whole idea, and probably I think for Grigoric, who's always been playing the Nimo-Indian with white, the whole system, sort of the whole world was sort of, you have the bishop pair, he gave it up without even being asked with a3, and then he castled queen side into an open file, and then fast forward 20 moves later, I'm just being totally mated and had no attack on the way. How did this happen? Well, this is Boa Constrictor chess. It's maneuvering in this position. I showed this game to some young players, and they was just like, whoa, can you play this way? This is crazy. Like you're not doing anything. You're just playing against your opponent's plan, and well, that is often enough. If you have the right plan and you have the right structure, you just have to avoid any kind of thing that would interfere with that, and then you will just win so easily that it looks like magic almost. Anyway, this was GM Talks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I thought this game was excellent. I would have loved to play this game. It's much more difficult than it looks.